And it's way, hey, where the Red Queen reigns, from her throne upon the sea, with the hot rum running in our veins. We will serve you steel for tea. Took ship at 12 years old, a lad both young and green. A score years since I'm a pirate bold, and many's the sight I seen. But the finest sight I seen by far, from Port Royal to Malabar, in time of peace or time of war, is Anne the Pirate Queen. And it's way, hey, where the Red Queen reigns, from her throne upon the sea, with the hot rum running in our veins. We will serve you steel for tea. With a black flag dancing overhead, we will salt your beef with flying lead, and you'll regret that ever you fed at the board of Anne Bonny. Now some will rue their sailor's trade when they see the boatswain glare, and some will quake at the scrape of blades where powder smokes the air. But the bravest tar who ever sailed would sooner face a roaring gale than feel his heart within him fail at the flash of Anne's red hair. And it's away, hey, where the Red Queen reigns, from her throne upon the sea, with the hot rum running in our veins. We will serve you steel for tea. With a black flag dancing overhead, we will salt your beef with flying lead, and you'll regret that ever you fed at the board of Anne Bonny. Come if you dare, you silly sheep, we'll shear you head to heel. We made the Jolly Dutchman weep, the haughty Spaniard kneel. Come brig and frigate, sloop and snow, we'll strip you clean and sink you low, to take you grog with Davy Joe beneath the rolling keel. And it's way, hey, where the Red Queen reigns, from her throne upon the sea, with the hot rum running in our veins. We will serve you steel for tea. With a black flag standing overhead, we will salt your beef with flying lead, and you'll regret that ever you fed at the board of Anne Bonny. Drum and plunder, ho! My heart's a ship is trim and true. We'll set a course for distant parts and foreign revenue. We sail upon the morning tide to strop our blades on merchant hide, and we'll get glory, gold and pride on Captain Bonny's crew. And it's away, hey, where the Red Queen reigns, from her throne upon the sea, with the hot rum running in our veins. We will serve you steel for tea. With a black flag dancing overhead, we will salt your beef with flying lead, and you'll regret that ever you fed at the board of Anne Bonny. Tell me way, hey, where the Red Queen reigns.
Jesus want the feet and confidence. We got a place to go where we die, and the architect resides right here. We've got the American Jesus, fostering national faith. We've got the American Jesus, overwhelming millions every day. He's the farmer carrying fields, the pussy on his wheels, expressions on the faces of the starting millions, the power of the plan, the fuel that drives the clan. He's the motive and the conscience of the murderer. He's a preacher on TV, the false sincerity, the formula that's written by the big computers and nuclear bombs, the kids with no moms, and I'm fearful that he's inside me. Yeah, we've got the American Jesus, see him on the interstate. We've got the American Jesus, exercising his authority. We've got the American Jesus, bolstering national faith. We've got the American Jesus, overwhelming millions every day. Yeah.
Pirate ships are sailing on stormy seas. There's a radio free America just for you and me. The big radio stations are stinking up the air. The abuse Latimus Plus, it's a real nightmare. Say, I'm 8 years old, got on the pirate radio, land of the free and home of the brave. FCC crawling your grave. The Coast Guards are coming to shut the pirates down. They don't believe in free speech. The FCC's in town. Their axles and their hammers, they smash it all to bits. They want a little battle, but the war's not over yet. Sing, I am 8 years old, got on the pirate radio, land of the free and home of the brave. FCC crawling your grave. Oh, what are they afraid of? That we might tell the truth. We might play something good and it wouldn't be a goof. What we need is liberty, not those sticky laws. Freedom from the FCC and their money grubbing paws. Sing, I'm 8 years old, cut on the pirate radio, land of the free and home of the brave. FCC crawling your grave. Crawl in there, you perverts. Pirate flags are waving to fight the FCC. Lily-livered scallywags full of mendacity. It's mutiny of the airways. We're sculling lots of rum. We'll wake 'em, walk the plank. We're having lots of fun. Sing, I am 8 years old. Got on the pirate radio. Land of the free and home of the brave. FCC crawling your grave. I am 8 years old. Cut on the pirate radio, land of the free and home of the brave. FCC crawling your grave. Say, I am 8 years old. Cut on the pirate radio, land of the free and home of the brave. FCC crawling your grave. Crawl in there, you stinky, slimy slugs. Aye, keyhole on. Make 'em watch a play. 40 lashes. Gouge their eyes out. Stop
Good evening, dissident factions. That's what I used to say back when that was my theme song, Free Radio Santa Cruz. But this is Widdershins, radio for your spiritual side, a twisted approach to the left-hand path. I am a man of many names, Michael Birch, Phil, you name it. And at some point tonight, I'm going to have to take the show on the road and go pick up the clown that's not to the right of me when she gets done with her secret project. But you're tuned to Widdershins. And I had such a response for this last time. And people really seemed to like war stories with Uncle Birch. And they wanted me to finish the story. Well, there's no finish to the story. The story goes on and on. That's the beauty of the story, isn't it? But I just re-listened to it because I needed to remember what I said. And I got to say, if you haven't heard War Stories with Uncle Birch Part 1, you want to go listen to that, at least later after this show. I was there, and I was thoroughly entertained by these stories, and yeah, I like my own show, but so I listened to it to remember where we were. So I'll get you a little caught up. Somewhere around, I believe now it was 1995, spring equinox. Pirate radio station in the city of Santa Cruz, California, called Free Radio Santa Cruz, which would later be called Freak Radio, and you'll find out why if you listen to that show. Was born. I always called it, every year I called it its birthday. Other people called it its anniversary. I called it Free Radio's birthday. Free Radio Santa Cruz became a huge part of my ever-growing full-time job of activism at the time. We went through, we had a whole lot of pirate radio stories in that first one, but we got to finish because it's not finished. And free radio is still not finished. They're still out there. And I think I did mention it in the last show, but there was once upon a time, the organized pirate radio stations around the country voluntarily went off the air, volunteered with the FCC to go off the air to get a low licensing scheme offered to the people, which was the original fight of the free radio movement in the first place. Free Radio Santa Cruz goes down in history as the most radical. They would not bow to the FCC. They would not voluntarily go off the air for any period of time. As a person in that meeting, I hate to shoot down a history like that because that's a great story. But ultimately, there was such controversy about the idea of turning the transmitter off in the meeting. No decision was ever made. Nobody could decide. It was just, warring people back and forth, yelling at each other, calling each other names. Eventually, the thing got tabled, never got picked up again. And if you're already on the air and you decide to do nothing, that means, well, you stay on the air. And Free Radio Santa Cruz stayed on the air after the FCC finally offered a low license or a low power FM license to the people, and then the churches snatched up all the available space. Free Radio Santa Cruz stayed on the air, and they stayed on the air, and they stayed on the air, and a pinnacle person in that process, and I think I mentioned it before in the old stories, that the Earth First guy was Uncle Dennis. Uncle Dennis was probably the reason Free Radio Santa Cruz kept going as long as it did. Me and my friends and my band, Skip Mark Bob, Spirit, and myself, Phil Free, the band called Just Kiddin'. We were pinnacle in this because we lived at the house where it all happened. We became in control of the community's transmitter several times throughout these incidents that would go on, these raids and things that would go on. And we never ceased the transmitter from the people. We always, figured out a way to get people to the new space, even to the point where, as we'll get into it in this episode, it gets rather complicated. In the last episode, those of you that were with us, I'm just getting you guys kind of caught up a little bit. They had just, the police and the city had just raided the activist house in Santa Cruz where Food Not Bombs, the industrial workers of the world, Earth First, the Free Mumia Coalition, and Cop Watch, and Free Radio Santa Cruz all operated out of the same fucking house. It's like, if we painted a target on top, drop bomb here, the feds or the city would have dropped a bomb on that a long time ago, but they were slow. And they hadn't figured that out for a long time. When they finally figured it out, they did get the house condemned. The tenants went on legal rent strike, ended up barricading themselves in the house, while I assembled a mobile transmitter with the Free Radio Santa Cruz equipment inside a vehicle parked outside of the house that would then be raided by the police. And this is all in episode 1, so I'm just, just briefly going over that just to get you caught up, because I left it there. They came, they arrested all of my friends that were still in the house. Eventually, after a long struggle and very graphically disgusting things, it went on during this raid, and I remained unscathed because of a tarot card that I pulled. And you got to go and listen to the last episode. I'm already telling you too much. But I stayed outside of the building with the transmitter and guarded the transmitter, and the FCC had no cause to get me because I'd taken a lot of precautions and knew my shit and knew the law. House vacated, tenants jailed. An unheard of thing happened. They tore the house down that day. Typically, definitely in Santa Cruz and everywhere else, the house needs to be, fenced off and, monitored. And, there's a certain amount of time before forcibly removing the tenants and tearing down a building. But that didn't happen. They tore down the building that day, brought bulldozers in. The house had no foundation, so it actually, before I almost said the wrong thing. That house put up a hell of a fight and just did not go down without a fight. It was a really old house. House is down. That's where we leave off the story. The Free Radio Santa Cruz house, along with all these other activist groups, is torn down. The tenants are displaced. Some of them are still in jail. We went to a hotel that night. We had six or seven people, adults and a baby. And so this is bringing us up. I'm thinking this is going to be about 97, because I think around 98, my kid comes on the scene. So really, right around now, I have accidentally knocked up a 19-year-old activist, and I raised my kid, and I did all the right things. To a certain extent, so I just couldn't deal with her mom anymore, and then I had to raise my kid, as a second household kind of thing. But that's a whole other thing. But at this point, I've got a kid probably on the way. I don't even know if I know it yet at this point when the house is torn down. We eventually end up for several weeks in a welfare motel, like one of those weekly motels. Down in, the bad section of Santa Cruz, which is, a small block long. It's a very, very small section of the beach flats that is the bad neighborhood. But so we all, at least 7 of us, in this place had 2 little nooks that were big enough for beds, and I think a bed in the living room. It's just and the transmitter and all the equipment, Free Radio Santa Cruz, fit in a couple milk crates, about maybe 4 milk crates, and put them in the closet. We actually, the night the house came down, we broadcast. We ended up at a campground that night above Santa Cruz, and ended up being able to broadcast most of the night. Since we were broadcasting at the time of the raid, people came from all over this town to support us and throw stuff at cops. But when we were at the campground, we were up above Santa Cruz. So we were reaching farther. We were using the exact same transmitting equipment that you'd use on a house, rigged up in a pickup truck with a bunch of bungee cords and shit. Now, I mentioned before, we also worked with a group called Food Not Bombs, and we got food from the supermarkets before it went bad, made it into stew, rode it out to the street, and served it to the homeless and the street people. Anybody. You didn't have to be homeless to get Food Not Bombs, and always a bunch of bagels. People, there's people that would contribute. Always a bunch of bagels. Always these little things of tofu. Nice, roasted tofu, but we would serve those, and as such in Santa Cruz, some of the Food Not Bombs people were radical bicycle activists, and they came up with these bike carts that they made out of 2x4s and construction netting that they'd steal from construction sites, and a couple bicycle wheels. It would be attached to a bicycle with an inner tube from a bicycle tire. Very makeshift, very easy to do. So we had a lot of these, and there's an extra one lying around. I'm looking at it and go, well, that's not that much different than a truck. We need so we put a car battery, a mixing board, a battery-operated tape deck, a battery-operated CD player, only one CD could go at a time, a microphone, headphones, that kind of shit, a crate to carry cassettes and CDs. All this fit very nicely into one of these bike carts, and they had this huge antenna that used to go up in a tree or on a roof or wherever you want to put it, but an antenna for a house. Fit rather nicely in this thing with the right amount of bungee cords. It stayed up, and Mobile Free Radio Santa Cruz was born. We would do nightly broadcasts. We'd pedal it out of the beach flats up to the nearest hill overlooking Santa Cruz, and we broadcast for several hours every night. Stayed on, till we eventually got another place. But we would broadcast. We'd broadcast downtown. In downtown Santa Cruz, there's like one street where everything happens, one street where everybody goes, one street where everybody knows everybody. It's a small town. So you set up a big thing like that, it brings attention, and it brings attention. We use that to fundraise and to scour the community for a landlord with some guts, or somebody with an absentee landlord that could rent us just a space, anything to broadcast from. Eventually, after quite some time, it must have been at least 9 months or so, we get into this house. My daughter was born in that house shortly out, probably like a week after we were in that house. In Santa Cruz, everything's housemates. Very few people live in a place by themselves. You live with a bunch of housemates because it's very expensive, and one of the most expensive places in the country to this day. So there was a housemate already on the property, and the people in the front house, they all moved out, and he needed some housemates, and he happened to be a political activist in town. But he's a communist, and we were anarchists. And historically, communists and anarchists don't tend to get along. except rare occasions when there's a fascist about, that they can both fight together, and that's, it's happened here and there in the world. We kind of had that. We kind of had that because we were all, he had a show on free radio. I think he was doing the Free Mumia Abu Jamal show at the time. So that was another thing, it's if you can get us and the radio station into that house, well, then you can have a show. And so I think we had no space. There was actually there was a kitchen, and there was a little breakfast nook thing in the kitchen, and we hung a sheet. We hung a sheet there and put everything on a table. There was a nice tree out back, a walnut tree, I believe it was, to hide the antenna in. And we just went from there. And they, FCC came around eventually, did their letter thing. But it was one of those wonderful houses in towns like that, an absentee landlord that just never gets the notifications and doesn't give a fuck as long as the rent shows up. That's all they care about. As long as the rent shows up, everything's fine. So we eventually got into a new place, and then we broadcast from there. Eventually, next place we moved from there, it was brilliant. Medical marijuana was not really legal anywhere yet. There were some cities that passed little ordinances pretty much just telling the cops to look the other way where medicinal marijuana clubs were. And there was this old Victorian house right downtown, right in the hub of everything. And they gave us, or they let us rent their basement and put our antenna on the roof. Now, most of the rest of the house is a medical marijuana cooperative, and the police are supposed to look the other way. The front office in this building was run by a very political lawyer named Ed Fry. And Ed Fry was known for suing the district attorney rather often and other radical lawyer things there in Santa Cruz. So another thing the cops didn't want to fuck with, and another reason to just look the other way. And there it was, Free Radio Santa Cruz was there for years and years and years, living happily. The FCC would try and do their things, but it was such shaky ground, getting through the medical marijuana people. And we were like in the back in a basement in one of those storm cellar basement things. Still, the pinnacle people, the people that that kept it alive while it was homeless, that got it a home right away, that offered people into our home to do their shows, and then the people that did the work to move it were, my bandmates, Skidmark Bob Spirit, and myself, and Dennis Davey, and other people did help, but those were like the main people that did it all the time. Uncle Dennis. They called me Uncle Birch because they called me Uncle Phil. So my name was Phil Free, and I was older than most of them. They didn't seem to call Bob Uncle Skidmark or Spirit, Anti-Spirit. No, that didn't happen. But at any rate, that's probably where the whole uncle thing first took off. And that was, those are the pinnacle people involved. And it was a benefit for Food Not Bombs and I believe raising money for Free Radio Santa Cruz, where my band was born. We were different acts. I was a busker. Bob was a busker. Bob played one end of the Pacific Garden Mall. I played the other end of Pacific Garden Mall. We'd walk by each other sometimes and stop and listen and nod in approval at our radical political shit that we were playing. More of my stuff was geared towards Earth First and things like that. And then, I met Bob and I started, having other songs about other stuff too. But in this sleepy little town, it's going to take some backtracking here. several years before that, there had been a very radical political action in a town called Seal Beach, California, not far from here. Back before the world was netted in spy satellites, one of the first spy satellite networks to go up was the Navstar spy satellite system, and nobody knew anything about it. Except these two guys, these two activists, Keith Kaholer and, over the years, I forget the other guy's name, but I never met that guy. I met Keith Kaholer. But these two guys managed to get into this military base, developmental military base, because they had clipboards and wore little white coats. And I interviewed him one day. I said, how'd you pull this thing off? He says, it's just the outfit, and you got to just walk in there and act like you own the place. It's all about attitude. You got to look like you belong and act like you belong and just, cast that out to the world. And went, oh, a glamour. Okay, cool. And these guys managed to destroy several of these satellites. Keith Kaholer was said to have smashed this Navstar satellite, I think it was 6 times with an axe from on the wall before anybody could stop him. And one of the guys decompressed a clean room, destroying the satellite, crushing it outright. Didn't stop the satellite system from going up. It was a bold, radical act, and it brought knowledge of this spy satellite system to the world. The action could not be quieted. They couldn't put it away and not talk about it. So I met this guy. He ends up being a Santa Cruz activist. And I got to say, one of the most boring, monotone people I've ever met in my life. But he looked very clean cut. He could put on a suit, blend right in where none of me or my friends could. And he was downtown. He went to this meeting, the Downtown Social Legislative Task Force, which was an organization of business owners and the police and politicians, that kind of thing, on how to deal with the street people and the homeless and all the radical, crazy stuff going on downtown Santa Cruz. And our friend was able to just sit in this meeting like he was one of them, where they hatched a conspiracy against my friend Skip Mark Bob to open up a psych file and try and get Skid Mark Bob 5150'd. Herein lies the rub. In the meeting, one of the business owners goes, yeah, that guy plays in front of my business too. And then one guy goes, yeah, he always wears a cop said, he always wears a Millions of Dead Cops t-shirt. And then the guy from down by my end of the mall goes, yeah, mine does too. And he wasn't too sure of himself because, no, Skid Mark Bob had like 5 or 6 Millions of Dead Cops t-shirts. He always wore that when he was busking. I didn't have that. In this conspiracy that they hatched to mount false legal documents to make a fake file on my friend Bob, they confused the two people, and that fucked up all their efforts. And the fact that we knew about it, we knew exactly what they were doing, that fucked them up. Didn't work out that well. And I don't have that many. Where are they? I don't have that many of the songs that Bob's singing in, but I thought I had one here. Let's see. Here's one from Skid Mark Bob on Widow Shits. Skid Mark Bob in the lead there. You probably hear me in the background vocals there. This is how Just Kiddin' happened. When we came together for this benefit, Bob had material. I had material. Spirit, we needed a drummer, and Spirit was a hippie, and I guessed that meant that she probably played a drum. And, don't call me racist. It's true. It was true. She did play a drum. So, yeah, that shit wasn't poetry. Wasn't classical music, for sure. Folk music, the music of our folk. Had to be simple. Had to be easy to play, and we played those same songs on the street. I heard that song on the street many times. Matter of fact, I played versions of Skid Mark Bob, so I used to play that song on the street. I think I may have made up some of my own lyrics for it. And that's kind of how, we'll play that way later, but Have a Happy Fucking Day. That's how that happened. Have a Happy Fucking Day was a Skid Mark Bob song, and I barely heard it, and I made up my own version of it one day, and my version stuck. He didn't end up playing it. But yeah, so the original Happy Fucking Day, that's Skid Mark Bob. And I just kind of made it my own thing and was very animated, and I played it in public. And so I'm on this. So these are the songs that we would play on the street. In addition to, all the other activism we did, there was at least 10 sets a day on the street, most days of the week. There weren't really days off. Scraping by a meager living, we were selling cassettes, and then eventually we were selling CDs, and then they came up with laws that you couldn't sell CDs. I made up this cool little sign. I said, these CDs are against the law. Please don't tempt me into a life of crime by buying one. And people would just throw down money, and they just self-serve. When you always wanted to be out on the street busking around October in Santa Cruz, because Santa Cruz back then was one of the growing capitals of California. It's where all the good pot really came from. People in Southern California thought they were getting pot from Humboldt, but it never made it past Santa Cruz. We were shipping you ours. It was a good ship, but so if you were playing on the streets in Santa Cruz, if you were busking or even if you were spare changing, the growers always did their homage. And they would come down, and one guy threw an ounce in there one time. It was one bud, and it was an ounce. So you always had to be out there. But, so that was part of our job. And then, the same thing we would do at activist rallies all over the state and several other states, rousing the rabble. That was part of the job. And then we roused the rabble in Santa Cruz all the time. Every benefit that happened there, we were playing it. But I did some searching. And, I had to get really creative to find this thing, but I knew it was out there because I ran into it one time. But there was this one guy that kind of hung around. He was a high school teacher in Santa Cruz, and he would show videos of me to his students. And his students all, small town, everybody'd see me. So the students would, oh, yeah, that guy, he just rants and goes crazy down there. He's really funny. He would talk to him. He would talk to his students about politics and political activism, and use me as some sort of example in this thing. He calls me Phil Free, fearless freedom fighter. The kids still talk about him in school. I was like, wow, that's fucking cool. that's something to put on a fucking tombstone. I plan on getting cremated though, so no fucking. I ain't gonna end up knowing Ganga. But that's wow. So I found this thing, and this is so there's people talking and noises on the street. It's like Witterson's usually sounds when I'm up on the terrace, but way less traffic. But this is this I found and figured out how to record it on my laptop and get it into an MP3 and get it onto the phone. It was a very complicated process, but here's a song I don't have. I've never recorded this anywhere. This the stuff that I have. Most of the stuff that I have here are recording sessions stuff with Just Kiddin', and is my only professional recording session. I actually traded a gun for part of the money to cut that album. And I gotta say, my first time, man, I did it in one take. The entire album, one take. Sorry, I cannot say that about my bandmates. It took more takes, but I took to that really well. I liked it a lot. But here's TV by Feel Free, live on the streets. New to me. I think I actually was a shop owner by then. I would go out on my breaks, well, whenever I wanted to, and still busk, even though I had other jobs. But back in the day, let's see, Wednesdays was Food Not Bombs Day. It was the farmers market day downtown. Everybody gathered downtown, and Food Not Bombs would serve soup, stew pretty much, and bagels and stuff on the sidewalk. And so, I would busk up until that time. Farmers market was the best day to, make some money and, get some attention, get some ideas across because more people see you. It's just a busier day downtown. So then part of my job, as I alluded to before, was then cop watch. There was a lot going on around the Food Not Bombs gatherings. There were even, they've been infiltrated by agent provocateurs and just crazy shit in this little town that nobody ever heard of, except for people that make horror movies, it seems. So I talked before about these reporters that gave us some frequencies that we used in our work in Cop Watch. There were, tactical channels and stuff, where the cops would go when they thought, thought somebody might hear them on the scanner, they go to another channel, and if you had that channel too, then you'd hear what they said, and they'd be jumping around trying to get some privacy, and they couldn't if you had all the frequencies, and fucking I had them. So that fucking I think it was a 300 channel scanner, and we had a lot of shit programmed in there, but there was this one I never could figure out. It was called it said on the thing, Sheriff's Wireless. Sheriff's Wireless. Okay, so I programmed that in there. I never hear any traffic on that thing. So I'm standing there, monitoring the food not bomb situation. I got an earphone in one ear, like a CIA agent or something back in the day. And I hear this fading transmission coming in, very scratchy. And what I hear is, got any buds? Hey man, got any buds? And then it gets unscratchy. It's kind of louder now. Hey man, got any buds? It's a really clear transmission. Hey, got any buds? Got any buds? Got buds? Got any buds? There's somebody walking around looking for weed, trying to buy weed. And I look and see anybody, and then all of a sudden I heard it in stereo. Yet I only had one earphone in my ear. And I look, and the guy that's saying, got any buds, that I hear on my earphone in the other ear, he's kind of got a shaved head, a goatee, he looks like a skater punk. I saw him earlier doing skateboard tricks downtown. This fucking undercover cop, they taught skateboard tricks to, or maybe they found an undercover cop that knew some skateboard tricks. One of the fucking two, but this is probably the most effort I ever seen these fuckers give. I always thought they were very primitive police department with primitive technology and skills. But this day they really brought out all the stops, except apparently I had the bug channel. That was the Sheriff's Wireless channel. Oh my fucking God. It was gold. And if I got caught listening to it and interfering in police operations, there would have been hell to pay. But guess what, kids? Statute of limitations ran out on that one. So I saw these bunch of kids. And I gotta say, man, there's a bunch of deadhead kids. And I saw them go up to them. And I heard one of them say, hold on. Come back in like 10 minutes. I'll go check. And so I went by and said, hey, man, he's 5'0", he's wearing a wire, I'm fucking telling you. And they knew me. These kids recognized me. And that's all I had to say. I walked away. That's all I said. And next thing I see is these bunch of fucking deadheads chasing this guy down the street. They've got his skateboard. They threw his skateboard at him as he's running away. And I hear bleed over from all the other cop channels. Code 3. All these uniformed cops had to come bursting in there. But then they tried to play it off. They acted like they were arresting that kid, the cop. And they hauled him away, but they almost blew his cover, but they had to come bursting in. But his cover was already blown. This is one of the things that happened with that wire. So, meanwhile, back in the back, I got my stories all over the place. Back when we were in the little welfare hotel down in the beach flats, the bug channel comes up again. And the thing with the bug channel is you always had to be really close to the transmission. It didn't go out very far. And I hear this voice that I recognize, a female sergeant that I had plenty of run-ins with in Santa Cruz. And she kind of had a thing for me. But I recognize her voice, and she's describing graphic sex acts with prices attached. I said to fucking my friend at the time, Vinny, Vincent Lombardo, very high-strung Italian kid. I told him, I said, hey, Sergeant McMahon's doing a sting around here. And before I could stop him, he flew out the fucking door on his bike. He had a walkie-talkie that I could communicate with him, but he wasn't listening to it. he goes flying out the door, and next thing I hear on the bug channel in the background is his voice screaming out, "You never know what you're getting into these days." And then bleed over from another channel with cops. Some cops, he went around a corner, cops came up, snagged him, put him in the back of a motel room where they were putting all of the Johns from the sting, and there he sat until I knew he'd been picked up, but until the sting was over, and they found the walkie-talkie, and they thought he was listening to them on the walkie-talkie, but it was just a walkie-talkie, and it had only one channel, and it wasn't their channel, so little did they know, he was using a scanner to commit that crime in a way. I guess it was conspiracy. I don't know. So that happened. And there were a few times, drug busts and stuff I didn't get involved with, but I got to hear some really crazy graphic cop stuff. One time they were up in the mountains using it for a sting at a meth lab, and since they were up above us, the transmission made it down to me, and I heard that. So it was some really good listening there. All right. Well, that's enough of that story. But so Cop Watch is what we did. Way it worked with Free Radio Santa Cruz, and it was just beautiful. The way that I first got involved in clashing with cops downtown Santa Cruz, this cop was verbally abusing a citizen in my presence. He was standing over this kid and calling him a maggot, a piece of shit. What are you going to do about it, you piece of shit? And it went on for too long. And next thing you know, I'm up in his face screaming at him about the oath he has taken. And how are you serving and protecting and defending the Constitution of the United States by calling that citizen a maggot, you fucking pig? And that led me to getting involved in Cop Watch and recognize that in Santa Cruz it's a tourist-based economy, and it doesn't do any good for people to see their cops roughing people up in the town. And it doesn't work well for the tourists. So they smile and they talk shit. And they verbally abuse. And I learned a thing back when I was a cop. And this was a trick that they taught you. You take a voice-activated tape recorder and you put it under the seat of your patrol car. If you catch two suspects and you don't know what's going on between them or what their relationship is or whatever, but you sit them in the back of the patrol car and you walk away. You come back a little while later. Anything that they just said in the back of the patrol car, which is usually working out their story and stuff, that's now admissible in court because you have no reasonable expectation of privacy in a cop car. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy when speaking to a cop. That's why you have a Fifth Amendment. But that works in reverse. The cop has no reasonable expectation of privacy when talking to a citizen in public. We were on a public street. Ergo, we could record cops without their knowledge and have it totally legal. And the only time it really became illegal is when we rebroadcast it on a pirate radio station, then probably making it some sort of federal crime, but not one that they got around to sticking upon us. And Free Radio Santa Cruz might still be running to this day, but they're still out there at freakradio.org. They're at least streaming at freakradio.org. So that begat radio magic. Recording cops and then mixing up their words with some punk rock, especially like some anti-cop punk rock, that became radio gold. That was radio magic. To the extent where my show became so popular from doing that some cops listened to my show. As a matter of fact, a sergeant listened to my show. And turned out this sergeant heard one of his officers being verbally abusive to some people downtown. Didn't like that. And that officer got suspended for, I think, several days to a week. He's kind of mad at me for that. But that was the thing. There was another cop. He was really young and punk rock, or used to be punk rock once upon a time and wanted to relive his glory days. And he told me he was really into Minor Threat. And could I please play him some Minor Threat? Hey, Sasha, come here.
What?
Come here. Can I please play him some Minor Threat? So I went there a little early, get ready for my show, and I found me all of the anti-cop Minor Threat songs. And, you know, I told him I was going to play him a special set on the next show. And I did. All Minor Threat anti-cop songs. And when he saw me next, he was just telling me how great the show was, how much he loved it, how much he loved all the Minor Threat. And thank you for playing it. He did not get the subtle undertones. All right. I'm going to have to take this show on the road. We'll be back from the mobile broadcast unit in just a minute here. You're listening to Widdershins. I haven't even checked the chat room yet. Oh, yep. All these people are in there. Hello, y'all. I'm not going to chat because it'll probably screw it up like it happened that one time. Don't want that to happen again. So, since I finally got the Just Kiddin' onto the mobile broadcast app, let's see, we heard Smash My Head Against the Machine. Ski Mark Bob leading that up. Let's see, I'm going to play you something else first. And then, hold on, where the hell did it go? Then I'm going to play you a big Just Kiddin' block while I drive and stuff. And maybe we'll even hear from Marta. I might get there early enough. I don't know. Let's see. I got a lot of songs on here now. I used to have such a small music collection on, Jesus, seriously? I'm still scrolling. You're listening to Widdershins. God, Live Fast, Die Young by the Circle Jerks. Look at that shit. I didn't even know I had that song. I'm going to play you this one. Shit. Widdershins.
His eyes, they closed, and his last breath spoke. He had seen all to be seen. A life once full, now an empty vase, with the blossoms on his early grave. Walk away, me boy, walk away, me boy, and by morning we'll be free. Wipe that golden tear from your mother dear, and raise what's left of the flag for me. Then the rosary beads, counting 1, 2, 3, fell apart as they hit the floor. In our garb of black, we must pay respect to the colour we're born to mourn. Walk away, me boys, walk away, me boys, by morning we'll be free. Wipe the golden tear from your mother dear, raise what's left of the flag for me. Start a wound filled with hatred and remorse, where I pick and scratch till the blood it matched the silent rage now that fills my lungs. For there are many
and tear from your mother, dear, and raise what's left of the flag for me.
Masturbate and smash the stage. It'll be so great. I just can't wait. Masturbate and smash the stage. Hey, hey. Before it's too late. Day by day they find us with their values. Horrific views on the TV, binding us in fear to the dollar. Freedom grows smaller, still we can't see. Masturbate and smash the stage. It'll be so great. Just can't wait. Masturbate and smash the stage before it's too late. Day by day they sell away the forest, and they ignore us as we speak our mind. Some of us will still refuse to see it and disagree, choose to be blind. Masturbate and smash the stage. It'll be so great. I just can't wait. Masturbate and smash the stage before it's too late. It's time to grab a hold of what they cannot take away. Although they keep on trying each and every day. Give it one big stroke for all of humankind. Don't give it more and more, or else we will go blind. Masturbate and smash the stage. It'll be so great. I just can't wait. Masturbate and smash the stage.
On the road, but the show must go on. Yeah, it was me. Yeah, not my favorite song. It was fun to sing for a little while and everything, but I wanted to do an intro to that, but I forgot while I was getting in the car and stuff. But probably my least played song that I wrote, my least played by me, but that guy, Uncle Dennis, who just recently passed away, he traveled all over. He went to every Earth First rendezvous and gathering all around the country, and he went to every campfire that I didn't go to, and he sang that damn song. Where I had people coming back from some of these gatherings and begged me, please, tell Uncle Dennis not to sing your song anymore. I said, well, first of all, I don't tell Uncle Dennis anything. I'm not his boss, and hey, that's my song. My song can travel without me having to travel it. I'd say that's a good day right there in Phil Free's book, man. No, I gotta tell him not to sing that damn silly ass fucking song. I don't even remember what I wrote it about, but I remember I wrote it very quickly. There we go. Here's some more. Just kidding.
Streets and cities burning, plumes of smoke above. Speak a revolution, it's what I'm thinking of. Speak about America, flags waving in the wind. America is out here like a glowing box within. You can't feel the tension, you live inside a cave. The dying Constitution rots within its grave. The flames of discontent fan the flames, fan the flames of discontent. When I think about the future coming closer every day, I think a revolution, it seems the only way. But I wonder if we've got it, what it takes to be free, to form one mighty fist and put it through the TV. Wake from our oppression before we're put to sleep. The fighting weed of apathy sinks its roots too deep. The flames of discontent fan the flames, fan the flames of discontent. Call into action against an economic greed that induces and produces these things we'll never need. They need more walls to house the poverty, building more prison camps to house you and me. The flames of discontent fan the flames, fan the flames of discontent.
To write a good protest song, you just need a slogan. I think that's how I did Masturbate and Smash the State. Somebody was chanting it at a rally one time. It was just funny. And before I knew it, I'd come up with a whole philosophy that little chant meant, even though that chant really didn't mean anything. But that was a no-brainer right there. The flames of discontent. Fan the flames. The Little Red Songbook of the Wobblies. I think I played a few of the Little Red Songbook songs in the last one when I played the Utah Phillips songs. I think even the International or Internationale was also in the Little Red Songbook. Text and drive, man, that's just unnecessary shit right there. There's that damn pothole. All right, I avoided the pothole from hell. And we're right on the edge of the 101 freeway in Los Angeles at 6:15 p.m. That's what we call rush hour. Well, really, rush hour is like happy hour, several hours long. Less happy though, less happy than happy hour, but several hours long. Not really a rush hour at all. And it looks like I got my internet connection back, so hopefully you didn't miss too much of the show, or it buffers or something like that. Yeah, we're driving right now. and listening to some Just Kidding, and probably some other songs. But finally, I wish I had Just Kidding when I did the last show, War Stories Part 1. There's definitely more war stories, but I wanted to bring you up to the free radio. Stayed to this day, and eventually Free Radio Santa Cruz moved to this other Victorian, with mostly college kids. We rented out another basement, and we stayed there so long that none of the original college kids were in the house anymore. That we're at the meeting that said we could have a pirate radio station. So mostly kids didn't know who lived in the basement, or why there was different people coming in all hours of the day and night. But they minded their business. So much to the extent, when I think it was when George Bush W was running for re-election, suddenly, some reason, all these pirate radio stations around the country that hadn't been raided were now being raided. At gunpoint, Justice Department troops, assault weapons, the full fucking thing. So there's these college kids, don't even know what's going on. The entire house gets raided. Kids woken up at gunpoint. Big, huge raid. The FCC's there, sees the transmitter, they sees the antenna, they sees all the stuff. All of the feds cops, or the feds cars at the scene had their tires slashed at the scene. The Santa Cruz cops were kind of upset by this. Over time we developed a better relationship with them. But the one thing they didn't want is the trouble that it caused, because people are marching around this house chanting. Everybody's got signs already. Most of this I missed. I was in bed when the call came through, and I didn't recognize the number. But since it was a small town and all the feds got their tires slashed, and so they had to take them down to the local Goodyear, and somebody, people had cell phones by now, so somebody spotted the feds' cars getting towed downtown and called a bunch of people and told them where the cars were, and then the protest moved downtown, and while they were getting their tires fixed, and all these activists marching around, fuck the FCC signs and this kind of thing. But they did get the transmitter. They got a 40-watt mono transmitter. So mono means not stereo, right? So one speaker. It plays out of both speakers, but it's playing the audio from just one speaker. If you play old, 60s songs, they're really trippy, because you only hear one of the tracks. So meeting happens. I hadn't been to a meeting in years because I was old school. I was one of the founders. I didn't have to deal with shit like that and didn't like it. So I went to the meeting. It was an emergency meeting. We're going to figure out how we're going to get on the air. Everybody goes around the room. Everybody reaches consensus that we need to raise money to buy a new transmitter, a new antenna and stuff. And I watched it go on. Then I raised my hand. I said, excuse me. I recall being at this meeting, it feels like a few times now, and we spoke about the necessity for backup transmitter and all the equipment. And I remember reaching consensus several times on this issue. And I can even remember a couple meetings where we allocated funds toward specifically that. Do we have a storage space? So he says, yeah, so-and-so's got the key to storage space. I said, look, could we table this, go to the storage space, take a look at what we got? I think we don't have a problem. Your Uncle Phil or Uncle Birch has the long memory. I remembered all that shit. That's why I didn't go to meetings that were grueling, but I remember those grueling meetings where we sat and consented to exactly that. So we go to the storage space. There are 5 transmitters in the storage space and 4 sets of all of the audio equipment. We had bought it, and people had put it in the storage space and not even realize, hey, we already have one of those. And on top, now remember they got a 40-watt mono the FCC took from us. On top was the 100-watt stereo
that was so special. We didn't want to hook it up because we feared we might get a raid. We never hooked it up. We'd never 100 watts. That amount of more wattage is huge in radio, and stereo. So yeah. So we were on the air within a day of the biggest raid that Free Radio Santa Cruz ever had. I mean, the other one, they tore our house down. That was huge and everything, but that was less of a raid. The FCC was only there because they got wind of what was going on at the house, and that the house was going to be torn down. This specific one, this was the FCC and Justice Department troops raiding the house to seize the transmitter and all the equipment. And nobody happened to be in the studio at the time. Nobody was arrested. Nobody remains arrested to this day. And Free Radio Santa Cruz might still be broadcasting without a license, but they're definitely at least doing like I'm doing here. I wrote a little song about it back in the day, and it goes like this.
can you do? I believe in sabotage to make my dreams come true. But some people will say you should be put away for destroying their precious property. Well, they don't bat an eye while Mother Nature cries. She is much more precious to me. It's why I believe in sabotage. They will listen. What more can you do? I believe in sabotage. Just who are they trying to screw? I believe in my heart. We all do our part. Take a whack at the big killing machine. Its gears will stop turning, carcinogens stop burning. Yes, I have a dream. Oh, I believe in sabotage. They won't listen. What more can we do? I believe in sabotage to make my dreams come true.
Yeah, just kidding. Sabotage. Yes, Pt-2. I wrote that one for Earth First. But even that was a little too radical for Earth First at the time, or the majority of Earth First. But the Earth Liberation Front, well, they loved it. They loved it. Earth First was slowly slipping away from the one thing that made it radical. Kind of like, who's that Whale Wars guy? Yeah, like them. Where they actually, direct action group that's not actually taking direct action anymore. Or taking less direct action. Or, they became, in my day, I saw a lot more people like locking themselves to gates and machinery and that kind of stuff. I mean, that was against my religion to allow myself to be captured by my enemy like that. So I was never a lockdown person. I was on a support crew for Julia Butterfly, one of the longest tree sits ever, and several support crews for tree sits and that kind of thing. But I was a saboteur. I was a monkey wrencher, and I would burn things, in a safe way. It's really hard to start a forest fire in the redwoods, so you're pretty safe burning up machinery of destruction. You have a lot of rubber parts and plastic parts, and they just can't seem to operate without those things. So they burn well. And everything that can be put together with a wrench can be taken apart by a wrench, monkey wrench. And so that was that song for them. And it also worked for the Wobblies too, because the Wobblies were into sabotage too, where the term Sabo Kitty came from. I don't know what more I have to say about that, but I think I got one or two more, maybe just kidding songs. I'll try and close the show with one of those songs. Here's Burn. Wrote this for an industrial hemp benefit, and I took it a little far, as you might imagine. I got one more Just Kidding song on here for now. I'll play that a little bit later, maybe close the show with it or something like that. But one of my colleagues from the rabble-rousing days, David Rovics, with this one.
You can say that it's about the savages. You can say you have a better way to live. You can call it manifest destiny. You can talk of all your civilization will give. You can say that we're a thing of history, and progress is the future you will bring. You can send your armies to these mountains. You can say we'll prosper beneath your king. But there will always be resistance. The next battle will always be near. As long as you have everything, there will be those who have nothing to fear. And little by little, or maybe all at once, you will lose. Because our future is not yours to choose. You can say you've got to stop the communists. You can say that our ideals can't succeed. You can say that competition is the only way, and a global system based on greed. You can call yourself a Democrat. You can call yourself whatever you will. You can keep on stamping out the fires you start, so you might stay on top of the hill. There will always be resistance. The next battle will always be near. As long as you have everything, there will be those who have nothing to fear. And little by little, or maybe all at once, you will lose. Because our future is not yours to choose. You can say that all of us are terrorists, madmen bent on destroying all that's free. You can say that we are building weapons as your bombers fly from sea to bloody sea. You can say you're with us or against us, and to die quietly is what we now must do. You can maintain your innocence. You can say that you are many as you represent the few. There will always be resistance. The next battle will always be near. As long as you have everything, there will be those who have nothing to fear. And little by little, or maybe all at once, you will lose. Because our future is not yours to choose.
LA, where 20-minute drive is 40 minutes. Oh my goodness. Well, you are listening to Widdershins Radio. I'm going to play, oh geez, we're almost there. Look at that. All right, I'm going to play you some more David Rovics, and then probably play you that last Just Kidding song. See you next week. You can find me at gumroad.com/witchschool. That's WITCHSKEWL. You can find us at Widdershins Radio on Facebook. You can find us at widdershinsradio@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week.
was dying. If they said this on the news, if they would clarify the picture instead of seeking to confuse. If you could see the ice caps melting, if you could watch the oceans rise, if you could see the consequences right before your eyes, if you knew the kids were dying, if you could look inside the river where their food comes from, filled with cyanide, if you could hear the parents pleading, if they were looking right at you, if you could see the anguish in their hearts. What if you knew? If you knew the bombs were falling, if they showed them hit the ground, if you could see the bodies flying, if you could hear the sound, if you could see the rubble where the hospital once stood, if you saw the child's lifeless limbs, would you hold them if you could? If you knew that they were lying every time they spoke, for every laser-guided pinprick there were lives lost in the smoke, if instead of just the generals they had doctors too to describe the carnage of the cluster bombs. What if you knew? If you knew what they were saying when they think you cannot hear, if you understood what they do, if for you it was so clear, if you knew they shut down the factory in an economic ruse, if you could kiss the cheek of the child in the sweatshop that made your shoes. Every time we went to war to fight our evil foes, they told you we were really fighting for the good of CEOs. If you could feel the hunger of the many, see the riches of the few, if they told it like it is, what if you knew? You knew that you were living in a huge conspiracy. Would you leave your suburbs, get out of your SUV? Would you hit the streets and fight for all our lives? Would you hold your ground when the stormtroopers arrive? If you knew that the whole planet depended on what you do now, would you take command with the speed our times allow? If the pundits told the truth for just a week or two and real life was shown on TV, what if you knew?
With me today, and being that I didn't have a toy gun pointed at them, walked away with my life relatively intact. But I got a severe tongue lashing, you know what I mean? Said in America there's some things you cannot say. In America there's some things that against the law to say. Other things there's laws requiring you to say them in certain places and certain times when required by certain authority figures. Get shot fire in a crowd! Get shot fire in a crowded theater! You cannot say you're gonna kill the president! Kill that motherfucker! Oh yeah, one other thing. You can never say the word fuck in public. Fuck! No, you can't say the word fuck in public or on public radio. You cannot say the fuck on the public airwaves. You cannot say fuck in any public manner. I'm not even sure if you can say fuck in private. It might be regulated somehow. Said the bottom line's the children, Phil. I gotta protect the children from you and your foul mouth. Do you know how much damage you could cause them if you was to say fuck in front of their children, Phil? Why, it could ruin them for future generations yet to come. Fuck the children. Why, you could make them unproductive members of American society. And ruin them before we had a chance to brainwash them. Phil, goddamn it, you can't just be going around saying fuck. Look at what you can do. Well, I wondered about some of the words I can say before children. And I wondered about some of the words I'm supposed to say in front of the children. And I wondered about some of the words we say to the children every fucking day on the TV set. Like bombs and missiles. Bombs and missiles you can say to the children all day long. You can say, oh, bombs and missiles to the children and no one's gonna care. You can tell that we make the best damn bombs and missiles anywhere. Well, you can tell them, get a job, get a job, get a job, and slave the rest of your lives for $5.15 an hour and die miserable broke just like good old mom and dad living the America dream. Have a happy fucking day, fucking happy day, happy fucking have a goddamn happy fucking day. I'm so fucking happy. Well, you know, son, you can grow up one day and be the president of the United States of America with a mindless puppet on a string and doesn't even know who's pulling it anymore. Maybe you can grow up and be a prison guard. You know, I don't want you to get me wrong. I got a kid of my own, and every day I got to look at her and I got to think, you know what I'm going to say to her, what I'm not going to say to her, and who's going to say the things that I don't say to her, and what they're going to say about the things that I don't say about her, and on and on and on and on and on. Well, I think I'm not going to use words like mutually assured destruction in front of my children. Bombs, intercontinental ballistics, smart bombs, and cruise missiles in front of my children. Oh, but shoot me dead with a cruise missile, I might say fuck in front of my daughter. I'm gonna say fuck, you fuck safe and you shoot clean, goddammit. You fuck the partner of your choice, the gender of your choice, the species of your choice, the age of your choice. If anybody doesn't fucking like it, well, I just don't fuck them, alright? I'll fucking teach them. Oh, you fuck anybody you wanna fuck, and if anybody doesn't fucking like it, it's none of their fucking business anyway. You know, so many people so repressed about the word fuck. Second only to the word masturbation. Oh, but you know, of all the fucking in the world that you can do in all the ways that fucking could, you know, change your life or, you know, ruin your life, why none of them are dangerous. It's fucking with a cruise missile in your head. Have a happy fucking day. Oh, you know, someday maybe you could grow up and have $20,000 million and you can go and petition the FCC for a license to, you know, spout your views out on the radio, and, you know, why, then every time you do, you get a fine. Why, every time you say the word fuck, you could receive a $20,000 fine for saying the word fuck. Why, you could receive sanctions from certain corporations for using their particular brand of smart bomb on the air. Have a happy fucking day. Have a happy fucking day. Fucking happy day. Happy fucking happy. Have a goddamn happy fucking day. A fucking happy day. Oh, I'm happy. Are you happy, Bob?
I'm fucking happy, Bill.
Oh, I'm happy about the hole in the ozone layer. Oh, I'm happy that my kids aren't going to be able to walk outside without wearing sunscreen and hats and sunglasses and geodescent domes. Why, I'm happy that our country has more killing capacity than any country on the face of the planet. Able to blow up more of the planet than any other country on the face of the planet. Oh, aren't you proud to be an American? In the land of the free. And the home of the wage slave. To have the God-given right to dig through the dumpster of your choice and eat all the contents within your heart's desire. Provided the cops ain't watching and you got bolt cutters, cause dumpster diving's against the law. Have a happy fucking day, fucking happy day, happy fucking happy, have a goddamn happy fucking day, a fucking happy day. Oh, 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 I'm happy.
Your hair's falling out, Bill. I'm happy.
Are you happy? You, on the phone. Are you fucking happy?